It's very easy to focus on the negative things that have happened since 2020. But there's also been some positives too. So I was out with my son having lunch with him today, and we kind of talked about adversity and how, it's a cliche, isn't it, how it can make you stronger. But I think for me, adding some value, it's you only realise how strong you are when you're put to the test and you find yourself in, you know, quite a scary situation, and you rise to the challenge. You know, if that challenge had never have happened and somebody had said, well, could you have coped with that XYZ, this scenario, you might have said, oh no, I don't think I could. But actually, when it happened, what can happen is that you draw on reserves of fortitude and energy that you didn't realise that you even had. And I think that's definitely happened with me. It would also be true to say that my own self-esteem has increased, has improved actually since 2020, because I'm quite pleased really in terms of how I responded, that I was strong enough. For example, back in September 2020, when the new term began, to be the only member of staff to walk in to the staff meeting at the beginning of term, minus a slave muzzle. You know, that took a bit of guts, because we'd got a letter prior to that, you know, at the beginning of term, saying there's going to be a staff meeting and it's expected that everyone wears a slave muzzle. But I thought, no, I'm not doing that. And I did it. Now I realise that not everybody has got that same courage, and that makes me feel I'm happy about that. I'm happy that I have that quality. I never imagined, I guess, it was as rare as it is. So what I'm saying is that I've got greater confidence in my own judgment than I had. You know, I think well, even when I started making these videos, I called various things out, and you know, time's been on my side, and you know, that kind of strengthens your self-belief. You're onto something. You're on the right lines. You're doing the right thing. You've made the right moral calls. So with that greater confidence, I've become a little bit more bolder than I used to be. You know, certainly less shy, for example, when talking to people that I don't know. You know, this is actually a thing that's it's an irony. There are many teachers. Some of them are gregarious and outward going, but many teachers, they can be quite sort of introverted, and you know, they went into teaching because they loved their subject and they wanted to share their enthusiasm. Obviously, there are some bad people that go into teaching. They're the ones that get on the power trip and enjoy bullying young people. There was plenty of them in, well, particularly in the last place I worked. But anyway, let's stick with the positive vibe. Normally I make my videos in the morning, but so it's coming up to 6 o'clock now, mid-October, and this is one of my favourite places. Finland's full of lakes. There's thousands and thousands of lakes, and the light, well, I don't know, I think you can you, I don't know if it comes across in the camera, but it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful light. And it's different, you know, obviously from the morning to the afternoon and the evening. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that, so let's continue with what I really wanted to talk about. So yeah, what this means is more confident in myself. So nowadays I'm more likely to just talk with random people that I've never met before. I don't care really. I also don't really care about what people think about me, because I kind of now know who I really am. And who I really am, I think, is what I did. I proved it to myself. You know, I was faced with a very difficult decision, you know, about quitting my job because I wouldn't, my 30 odd year teaching career down the Swanee, £500,000 down, both me and my wife ditching our well-paid jobs in England to come to Finland, you know, to just make our stand against biomedical fascism. You know, some people would say it's crazy, but I kind of, when I think about it now, it's sort of, well, you had a lot of courage, Nigel, you know, you had strength in your convictions. Not everybody would do that. So what I'm saying is that I'm a lot more confident. I'm a lot more, yes, I don't have any inferiority complex really at all. I'll talk to anybody. I know who I am. I'm not, my perception of myself isn't based on anybody else's opinions of me, you know, particularly kind of like, you know, the people that complied and all of that. Well, what do I think about them? You can only guess. Anyway, look, I'm rambling, and what I want to get at is very, 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 very important. Yesterday I was out and about and I came across this guy, and he was I won't tell you too much about what this guy was doing because I don't want to dox him. Anyway, Finnish guy. So I started speaking to him in Finnish, and he recognised that. He said, "Oh, you're English, aren't you?" Oh, yeah. And then you know, we switched into English, and he was quite, you know, he made the switch actually, and he was quite happy to talk with me, and he asked me about how I got to be in Finland. Now, the thing is I don't really do kind of small talk. So if somebody asks me that question, like, why did you leave England and come to Finland? I'll just tell them the truth. You know, it was because I was a teacher. I wasn't prepared to enforce the slave muzzle requirement on my students. I wasn't prepared to go along with the biomedical fascism. You know, I got kicked out of my out of the staff room. I got kicked out of my classroom. You know, got told to go and teach in a nearby house, like properly ostracised. So look, you know, I knew it was just going to get worse and worse and worse. And as I say, history's been kind to that assessment. Things have got worse in England, and I'm very, very glad that we came here to Finland. And I would say, I was talking again to my son about this today, in Finns, they tend to be more independently minded. They're more sort of like pro-freedom. They're not sort of as kowtowing towards authority as Brits, particularly kind of middle-class Brits, who tend to be far more obedient, like, and mindless in their rule following. So anyway, start talking to this guy, and I just said to him, like, oh, I did, and I didn't take part in the old medical experiment, and I just knew he didn't too. And he said, yeah, I didn't take part in it either. And this guy, similar to me, basically, his employer asked him about his medical status. He said he wasn't taking part in the experiment, and they told him not to turn up to work anymore. So, you know, and he didn't cave into it. And he knows plenty of other people who didn't cave into it either. So there are quite, I guess he found out new things about himself when he was put to the test like that, because I think it's only once you've been put to the test that you realise who you really are. Like, especially for me, because I've always been like quite modest. So I thought, oh, I'm not that great. I'm not that. But then when you actually are put to the test, it's like, whoa, I never thought I'd be able to do that. But then you did it. So that says something about you, doesn't it? You know, actions speak louder than words. So I had a great chat, me and this guy, and he told me that he knows quite a lot of people who didn't take part in the experiment. So I've said this before, it could well, I think it's highly likely that governments have massively over-reported the number of people who had the experiment. It might be far fewer than 70% who took part, Could be far fewer than that. He also told me about how he knows, and I did find this a bit rough. He knows some people, couples, where one had it and the other didn't, and you know that obviously causes problems. So, oh, look at that, absolutely beautiful. That's better than the internet any day of the week, isn't it? Some swans flying south for the winter. Fantastic. They're missing the best part though, aren't they? I love the winter here. Not that we're in winter yet, we're in autumn. But yeah, this guy, he was like really cool guy. I went and got him some beers. I just shook his hand. And I think this is what I'm trying to say, is that we've got to use our... I still don't think I'm very gregarious and outward going, but I think sometimes we've just got to make the effort to talk to new people, because what I suspect is that there actually are maybe miles more of us than we actually think. You know, and of course they shut down the pubs and stuff. They didn't want us to get together. So I think what we've got to do now is to take any opportunity to start up conversations with people and make connections with other people that didn't take part in the experiment. And there's no easy way of doing that apart from being upfront about your own stance, and you know, okay, you might get some you know, some compliant people who don't like your line of conversation, but for me that's a price worth paying. You know, this guy, I'm sure, will develop into a friend, and as I said to him when we were talking, I said to him, like, one of the good things about 2020 was that you know, in the past 2019, you might have to talk with somebody for, like, I don't know, months or years to get to know them. Whereas now, after the experiment, all you need to know about somebody is, did you take part in the experiment or not? And that answer will tell you everything about the person that's standing in front of you. The other very interesting thing that I would say about this guy was that he looked, I think people like us, we actually do look different to them, in the sense that we have some brightness in our eyes, we look healthier. And this was certainly the case with this guy that I got talking to. You know, he was a big guy anyway, he's probably 6'2", something like that. Athletic, strong looking bloke without being fat. Just looked at, he kind of radiated health. Yeah, and I can't help but think, you know, there's been various people commenting on my channel that maybe has kind of changed people's spirituality. They've lost their connection to God by having the, I don't know whether that's true or not, but I don't know, I think a lot of people who took part in the experiment, they look kind of shadows of their former selves. They've aged a lot, and they seem miserable, don't they? I guess anyone would be miserable, having realised that they kind of backed the wrong side, you know, and they sold their souls effectively by choosing to go along with evil. So some other things that this guy said was that he knows of some people that unfortunately died very quickly after having that one, but he also knows other people with neurological conditions that have developed more slowly following the, and then he also knows people who just seem to have a cough, a cold constantly. Now sadly, you know, I know one guy who's no longer with us, his cancer came back and killed him pretty quickly. Somebody else that I know of had some problem with their throat and they died, but it took him about 2 years after the before they finally departed. And yeah, I know people who seem to now have problems with their immune system, just these like terrible kind of very deep coughs that almost sound like a dog barking. Changing topic sort of slightly, probably my best friend in Porry is somebody else. I met him on a language course, and he's not a Finn, he's not a Brit either, but I'm not going to go any further than that because again I don't want to dox people. And yeah, now this guy also didn't take part in the experiment, and he's probably my best mate in Porry. So is that a coincidence? Again, I would say no. I'm naturally drawn to those people who didn't take part in the experiment, and I think those people are the ones you're gonna form your closest friendships with. So to find those people, I think we've got to speak up, and to new people, any situation, strike up a conversation, find out whether they're on our side or not, like start making networks and connections, but just doing it informally, because I think if you try to do it formally, you'll just get the 77th Brigade or similar just infiltrating your group. So just do it piecemeal. When you're out and about, strike up conversations, ask the killer question, did you take part or not, and then go from there, rather than being, you know, like that song Morrissey, or is it the Smiths? Shyness is nice, but shyness can stop you from doing all the things in life you'd like to. Do you remember that one? So there's something else as well, you know, that I have found out that's quite interesting, is that you know, this kind of the kind of Ukraine thing and stuff, I have it on fairly good account, and I won't say which side which this person was on. You know, it could be side A, could be side B, but basically what's happening over there in Ukraine is soldiers, I suspect on both sides, are getting orders to go to a particular place on the map, and then when they get there, the drones come in and the drones are killing people. And yeah, it kind of strengthens my belief that they control both sides. I probably will do a separate video about kind of conflict and all of that, because I've been having some thoughts about that, you know, because it's coming up to Remembrance Sunday, and yeah, make no mistake, they're for kind of like dummies. Who's the same entity is basically in control of the Israeli government, is in control of Hamas. It's the same, you know, and basically what they want is for us to take sides and then kill each other. But I'll go into that, because I think there's also links with the boat people being put up in hotels. I think there's some kind of strategy there that's going on, that involves drones in the final clear up, which would then be kind of similar to that Terminator movie or whatever. But anyway, that's all I want to say today. So a bit of a rarity, an evening video. I think the light here is so beautiful. Different times of day, the light varies massively, because compared to places like England, the sun is a bit lower, quite a lot lower. So that's all I want to say today. So God bless.